Hi, this is Randy Larocque with Sinister podcast from Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. We're going to be talking about all things music with musicians, photographers, producers, engineers, and luthiers. So stay tuned and let's get this started, shall we? And here we go.
All right.
Hello, everybody. This is Randy Larocque, and this is the Sinister podcast, episode 4. And today we're going to be interviewing a gentleman, musician from North Delta, British Columbia, Canada. And he's the founding member of the Evan Williams Project. So let's welcome to the show, Mr. Scott McGowan. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing just great, Randy. I think the word gentleman is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
No doubt about it, right? So I figured I'd give you the benefit of the doubt.
Well, I do appreciate that. Yeah, and I appreciate you having me on. I've been looking forward to this all week, so this is great.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself first. Like, who is Scott McGowan?
Oh man, where do I even start? So I think the first thing to point out is that I had no intention of ever doing a music thing. When I was in high school, I was really into the drama, like not the interpersonal drama, but like drama of the class. And so out of high school, I went into theater, and so I am a graduate of Studio 58 at Langara College. And so I learned to be an actor, and then I got out into the world and realized very quickly that, I don't think I want to be an actor. So I kind of floundered around for a little bit, just trying to find my footing and figure out what I really wanted to do. And it took me a good couple of years, but eventually I settled on, hey, you know what? I actually really like producing music, or I really want to learn how to do that. So I figured that out on my own, and that was around 2017 or so. I say the band started in 2017. That was really the first time I sat down at my computer and I thought to myself, what if I just recorded a demo just for fun? And I did, and it was garbage. And the first one always is. So, but it wasn't until COVID hit, everything was shut down, that I really went like, okay, well, what if I really took the time, knuckled down, figured out what I was doing? And so I taught myself audio production just by, watching YouTube tutorials and going on forums and, learning all of the all of the woo stuff first, and then figuring out what was actually working and just, throwing crap at the wall and seeing what sticks. But, I've been playing guitar since I was 15, grew up listening to Metallica, Iron Maiden, the big four were a really big influence on me. But, it really wasn't until, again, about 2017, where I started getting into bands like Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats. I don't know if you know those guys, but they put out their first album, which was really inspiring to me because it was this really, it sounded like classic Black Sabbath, but it was made in like 2010. And so I went and I looked it up. Someone showed it to me, and I was like, man, this is like the sound that I want to go for. And I looked it up, and that album that they put out, they did it with like garage sale instruments and recording things, and they threw it together and they put it on 30 CDs, and they sold each CD for like $20. And then they used that money to go and make another album with better equipment. And I was thinking to myself, like, I could try that, I could try my hand at that. So that was really what inspired me to start thinking, oh, this is actually a thing that I could do, instead of, oh, this is a thing that I like seeing other people doing. So yeah, I've only really done the music thing for the last 7 years, which seems like a long time, but as I'm sure you're aware, it's not.
It flashes by in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
So what was it that made you want to play music? Like the kind of music you play? Like you were saying you were influenced by like Metallica and Iron Maiden and all that kind of stuff. Which one? Like what was it? Like there's usually a turning point in someone's life when they hear something, they're going, that's what I'm going to fucking do.
Yeah, it was when I was 13 years old and I heard Enter Sandman for the first time. That was the thing that made me go, hey, I want to learn how this works. I played piano until I was 13, and that one song instantly just switched my brain to, oh no, I actually want to do electric guitar. And my dad was all for it. My mom was a little less thrilled, but
Awesome. So how would you describe your music then? So first of all, I gotta ask, who's Evan Williams?
Okay. Yeah. So this is the question that always gets asked, and I set myself up for it. So what happened is that when I recorded my first demo, I really wanted to share it with people, and I wanted people to just like put it online and send the link to people instead of like giving them a USB stick or whatever. So I was looking up, where do you do that? And the big thing was, hey, you should sign up for SoundCloud. And so I did. I went on SoundCloud and I typed in my email address, and it says this email address is already in use. And I've never signed up for it before. I just heard about it like this week. So I'm going, okay, what the hell? Like, why? Who is someone using my email address for SoundCloud? So I recovered the account and I got in there, and it's just some guy, and his name's Evan Williams. And he has no songs. He just has his name, Evan Williams. He's liked nothing. He's done nothing. I don't know how long he's had the account, but he's been using my email to do it, whatever he's been doing on the platform. And it was so like, it caught me off guard. It's like, well, I'm going to change the name, obviously. And I go to change the name, and SoundCloud goes, well, you can't change the name for 30 days after you've recovered your account. And I'm like, but I want to share this thing now. So I just stuck with it. I'm like, sure, I'm Evan Williams now, whatever. And well, I kind of know who a little bit about him now too, because I started getting emails from his work. Like the foreman, he's like in Alberta working on the oil fields or something. And so I was getting safety updates from his foreman at his job site. And I was getting them for months. I kept emailing him back. I'm like, look, this is not Evan's email address. You got to take this email off of the mailing list because this is not him. This is not who you're looking for. And it took forever to finally stop getting it. But I don't know. He must have just typed in the wrong couple of letters, because I think our email addresses are pretty similar. But yeah, I like the name. And after the 30 days went by, I was like, you know what? Let's just keep it, right? You stole my email. I'll steal your name. I'll name this
Fair's
band.
fair.
Yeah. Fair's fair. And so the band is kind of in honor of Evan Williams now. It's, yeah.
So what kind of music is it? Talk to us.
It started out as I had a vision. I am going to make heavy metal of some kind. And then I tried really hard to do that, and it sucked. So then I pivoted a little bit into more like a heavy rock type of thing. Cause yeah, like the Metallica albums that I loved, and I say this because they really influenced the sound of everything that I do. I think the Metallica albums that I loved are like Master of Puppets, Justice for All, those ones. Like Black Album is great, but it didn't become like a personal favorite for me. But I was kind of like, let's, because the first thing I did was very much like more Justice for All, that sort of stuff. I said, let's lighten this up a little bit. Let's keep heavy guitars, let's keep heavy drums, but let's simplify it. And so I came up with this sort of heavy rock sound that we put on our first EP, 2430. And that's kind of been like the bass line. So from that point, from that heavy rock sound, we've gone more into we went back into like thrash and progressive metal with the release after that, Metamortality. And then we kind of went completely off course with Willpower, because what happened there is I got a Gretsch Electromatic Jet, and I was playing cleans with it, and I'm like, this guitar just had so much life in it. It had so many songs in it that I just had to do something with it. So Willpower is like this alternative progressive pop rock type thing. It's completely out of left field for most people. And we've now brought it back into the heavy rock thing. And the next one we're going to do is going to be gent. So I like to say we're genre agnostic, because we just make stuff that we think will sound interesting. Like, we're not terribly locked into one thing or the other, but at the very least, it's got to have guitars and it's got to have drums. And everything else can just, we'll figure it out, right?
And that's the thing, is there's so many genres now. I mean, I was talking with Kim about this an episode or so ago, And there's so many different types of genres, and ultimately they've got to fit into some kind of a category,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
who would you? Is there any bands out there that you would say we kind of sound like them? I know nobody really likes to say they sound like anybody unless they're a tribute band or.
Yeah, yeah. I would say, especially with this most recent release, we're very, very close to something like Andrew WK. But my vocal style is very influenced by Devin Townsend, so that comparison gets drawn a lot. And yeah, the Metallica and Maiden influences shine through. Apparently, we've got a review coming out for our latest album out on Monday, and I saw the preview for it yesterday, and it was like, if you like Metallica or Iron Maiden, you'll love this. And I'm like, okay, I didn't tell him to say that, so that works.
Nice. And I mean, you're obviously a few years younger than me, maybe just a
Just a few,
couple.
yeah,
And for
just
you
a
to say that you're into like Maiden and stuff like that, I mean, that I remember when those albums were coming out and we were, reading in newspapers, oh, they're coming out soon with this next album, and reading in magazines, and then to hear a younger generation listening to music that we grew up on, I mean, that's pretty cool. And I mean, it just shows that some of the music that was written years ago still stands the test of
Oh yeah.
time, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a testament to the quality of the music. I mean, like the nice thing about having this huge backlog of music from, before I was born is knowing that the cream rises to the top, right? Like there's this thing where people get into the idea of like, oh, I was born in the wrong generation because, I only like the songs from the 80s or the 70s or the 60s or whatever. But it is kind of a survivorship bias thing, right? Like only the good songs from that era are still being played and are still being recommended. So, but the great thing about it is there was just so much great music happening in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. There was so much, especially in the heavy music scene, that was being experimented with and iterated upon, that it's a smorgasbord of inspiration for anyone like looking to get into heavy music. So
Yeah, because I mean,
yeah.
I think every generation influences the next generation in one form or another. I mean, I've been talking to musicians that are in their late 20s, and they're talking about bands like Black Sabbath and Zeppelin and Motorhead, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, but they're also talking about bands that we grew up on, like so. I'm 56, so I mean, I never saw a Zeppelin show or anything like that. And unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was born in the wrong era, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But during my teens and 20s, I remember going to Ozzy Osbourne shows, Motley Crue shows, Judas Priest shows, Van Halen, and seeing all of these iconic musicians that I look now and I see, oh my god, some of these guys are in their 70s, some of these guys are in their late 60s and 80s
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like, but they're still out there giving her hell.
Oh, yeah.
They're still out there
Oh, yeah.
rocking, and they're still influencing some of the younger musicians now. I mean, I go on YouTube and I see 16-year-old girls playing Van Halen stuff, and I'm just like, God,
Yeah.
right?
It is really a testament to the quality of the music. And like, yeah, I mean, you can't get much better than Eddie Van Halen in terms of like guitar playing. You can't really beat a lot of that old stuff because it is just so it is so influential too, right? So it's kind of like I make this comparison a lot to people and it kind of throws them off. It's kind of like Seinfeld in that, when Seinfeld came out, it was so against the grain of every other sitcom that was happening that it became this huge success. And now pretty much every single sitcom that exists has taken a number of elements from Seinfeld that if you grow up on the modern sitcom and then you go back and watch Seinfeld, you're like, oh, this show's boring, right? But it's a different thing in music because yeah, like the stuff that they were doing then, I don't really know where this thought is going. You kind of get where I'm going with that, right? You can just write that as the quote for this podcast. 80s music is like Seinfeld, and no context. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, I mean, that music back then that I grew up on as a teenager and all that kind of stuff. You can hear a lot of that influence in some of this modern
Oh yeah.
stuff.
Oh yeah.
The modern stuff now with technology advanced so much more, like even when it comes to recording. I mean, 30 years ago, you weren't recording in your living
No,
room.
you.
You have to go to a studio to actually record it. Now you can literally, like, and I do it in my living room. This is my living room, my recording studio, my office desk. It's everything. And I can do it all in the comfort of my living room, other than the fact of for drums or anything like that. But anything else I can actually do in my living room. And I think that technology has given that to us, because old guys like me we didn't grow up on this, so our learning curve is a little bit longer. It takes us a few more attempts at it, whereas people in their 20s and 30s, they've been growing up with this stuff, right? So it's a lot easier for them. And I think that's why a lot of the newer music has been it's influenced by the 80s music, but the technology is so much more advanced now that they can take different tones and sounds and take it to new levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of leapfrogs on itself. Yeah, I mean, I am so thankful that technology has enabled me to do this, because yeah, I'm doing this in my living room too. I have a little, 4 by 8 foot box that I'm doing all my production in, and my father-in-law was a radio guy back in the day. And so he's telling me about all this, the boards they were using and the tape machines and how much work it was to get these things to do things. And then, and then he's asking me how I record things. Like, I just plug it in. And then I slap, 50 compressors and a couple reverbs on and I call it a day. But it's a gift, is what it is. Like, I know it's really easy to get cynical about that, right? It's like, oh, well, everybody can make music this day, but like, great. Thank God, like, can you imagine what the art world would be like if not everybody could pick up a pencil and draw? Like, the opportunities for new up and comers to just get in here and try it and get their hands dirty is just endless. And as a recipient of that opportunity, I'm so thankful for modern technology and how it's made this easier.
As a guitar player, we all have these idols that we, idolize and say, oh man, I wish I sounded like that. You just rubbed a genie's lamp. The genie says, I'm going to let you play like any musician you've ever wanted to play. Who would you pick?
Oh boy. I was just having this conversation with our guitarist the other day, actually. Can I give you two answers, one for rhythm and one for lead? Okay. If it was a rhythm guitarist, I would say James Hetfield, because that right hand just, but if it's a lead player, John Petrucci, hands down. The man is an artist. Like, it's, I would give my
Julian. He's a huge Petrucci fan. So yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I tried learning something that he did. I don't even think he wrote it, but it was just, it's one of those lick library things. I don't know if you've seen those. Yeah. It was like the lick library, John Petrucci shredding thing. And I think I got maybe a quarter of the way through it. And then I got to this part where he's having to do 30-second notes at 190 beats per minute, swapping between two strings. And I'm like, oh, fuck this. No, I don't want to. But yeah.
Do you play any other instruments?
I do. Yeah. I grew up playing piano, so I can kind of get away with doing that. I can get away with playing bass, as most guitarists can. Not very well. I'm just going to preface this. Good bass players are so good at the instrument. I'm just like, I can kind of play a rock beat on drums as well, but I would say that it's definitely, guitars, keys, and vocals are the things that I could play in a different band at, if that's the level of competency that we want to.
So who else is in this band of yours?
So the first person who joined other than myself was my sister, Lonnie, who is the drummer and also provides some backing vocals as well. She messaged me at the beginning of 2021 when it was still just a solo project. I didn't have any gigs or anything. And she just messaged me out of the blue on Facebook one day. And she goes, "So am I drumming for you or what?" And I said, sure. And then like 2 days later, we had a gig booked because she knew a guy who knew, and it's like, okay, great. So yeah, my sister's the drummer and she's a phenomenal drummer. Just, I couldn't imagine anyone else being in that position. And then we also grabbed two other people who have actually, we've been friends with for a long time because we all used to play together at church. And so then we I like to say that we converted them into the heavy metal thing, but yeah, so we grabbed our friend Isaac, who is just this phenomenal keyboard player. And then our newest member, but not that new, he joined last year, is Jackson. And Jackson is also a John Petrucci guy, but he can actually play what John Petrucci can play. So he was, oh my gosh. I just remember, we auditioned him and he just blew us away because he knew everything already. He knew all the songs. We asked him to prepare 2 songs. And then after he did that, we were just like throwing other songs at him and he just knew them and he was playing them and he's doing these ridiculous solos over them. I'm like, we gotta get this guy. So yeah, we got Lonnie, we got Isaac, we got Jackson. We've all grown up together. We've all been playing together for a while. And I think that's why the band works the way it does, just because we have that history with each other, right? And we kind of already know how everyone plays, how they practice, how to do all that stuff. But yeah, unfortunately, we've run out of friends to to bring into the fold. So we're still looking for a permanent bass player, but we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you've written how many albums now?
In terms of Evan Williams project albums, I've done 6. Yeah.
Wow.
Two of them demos. I consider them barely to exist, but then, so 4 albums worth of quote unquote serious music. The other thing that I've personally done, which is crazy, and I don't recommend anybody do it, but I give myself a challenge every November to write and produce a song every single day. And I've done it for 6 years. So I've got 180 songs just out there, just things that I did. I did that because I don't know if you've ever seen Inktober on Instagram or anything. A lot of visual artists will do it. It'll be like you get a prompt for each day and then you just draw something to do with that day. And I looked at that and I go, that's really cool, but I can't draw. What am I going to do? So I'm the only one who's doing it, except this year I had another friend do it. Anyway, it's incredibly stressful. I don't recommend it, but I will say that writing 30 songs in a month is a great way to learn what works for you.
Sounds like a punk album.
A little bit, yeah.
30 songs at 15 seconds a piece.
Well, yeah. They do tend to be a lot shorter, but I will say it's a great way to figure out what works for your process. And, I now know if I've got an electric guitar, I know what plugins I want to throw in on that chain. I know what kind of tone that I want to look for. I know that if I've got a synth part, I know how to make it span really wide and move around your face and do all that sort of stuff. So, I don't recommend doing it, but just recording a whole shitload of music is a great way to learn how to record music.
Well, I basically record everything I play, even when I'm practicing, because a lot of the times I'll just practice finger exercises and then I'll just put a drum beat on and then I'll just play. I'll set it for on repeat for 10 minutes or something like that and just jam, right, and just play. Then I go back and cut pieces of it and go, hey, that might be a good piece for a song. And I have to record everything because I will literally forget everything I've done in about 3 minutes.
Yeah,
I'll go get a drink, take a squirt, come back, pick up my guitar, and be like, fuck, I don't remember how that riff went. So I have to record everything I play, whether it's just me being an asshole for 15, 20 minutes, and so be it, right? But I have to record it because sometimes it'll be, for me anyway, for when I'm writing, it's very inspirational. So if I'm in a bad mood, you can bet it's going to be a heavy
Oh
chugger.
yeah. Oh
If
yeah.
I've just had a great day where everything just, everything went well, everything, the stars were aligned and the planets and everything else, then it might be, a little bit more uplifting, right? But that's literally what music is. Music is emotion to sound.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree with you on that. I personally do a thing that Jackson, our guitarist, hates that I do is I'll come up with a riff in my head while I'm like driving my car. And then I'll pull over safely to the side and open my voice recorder application.
Bullshit. That's right. I said it.
My wife's laughing at me too. Yeah. So I'll get the voice recorder open and then I'll just go something like, okay, so here's the riff that I thought I was like, and then I'll send that to him and he'll be like, Scott, what the fuck is this? But that's just how, yeah, that's how I remember, because I'm exactly the same way. I can come up with something and 3 minutes later, it's like I never wrote it. So
What's your favorite piece of gear? Your favorite guitar?
okay, so I got a few right here. I would say probably my favorite is my first guitar. It's this Epiphone Les Paul. I got it, I think, when I was 15 years old. And it's the same one. I just upgraded the pickups and threw on some locking tuners on it. I mean, it's a fantastic instrument. I think we bought it for like $450. And it's just, you play something for 15 years and it becomes a part of you, right? So I know the ins and outs of this thing like nothing else. So if I have to choose one instrument, it's got to be this one. But I mean, I'm sure you also suffer from gear acquisition syndrome. It's
I try not to anymore. I'm old and my back hurts, so I'm like, fuck, if I can't lift it into the truck by myself, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
I've been on a downgrade syndrome in the last little while because playing gigs, we play 1 to 2 gigs a month. And moving some of that heavy shit, like, I've got a 412 cab that I swear to God is as heavy as my truck.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the day when you're packing it up and you're full of energy on your way to a gig, it's not so bad.
And then at 3 a.m.
3 a.m. when you're exhausted, that thing could be fucking, it's like weighs 3 times as much as it should, right? Because you're exhausted. So I'm trying to get into the DI phase. I mean, I've seen a lot of other musicians that have done it, and it sounds really, really good. And so I'm going to give it a shot. I mean, of course, I'm still going to have my big gear, right? I love my big gear because there's nothing better than plugging in my rev and just cranking it. I don't think I've ever got it past half volume.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Hopefully, one day I'll get a gig that'll allow me to jack that sucker up. But so, what do you play for amplification?
So I took the modeler pill a long time ago. I used to cart around a 2x12 combo amp everywhere, and that enough was just like, I don't want to carry this. So I've been using an Axifex XL2 whatever. Been using that since 2019, and I mean, the thing's a workhorse, right? Like it's infinitely tweakable. It's so easy to get like a good sound out of it. And so I really haven't needed much else in terms of amplifications. And like, we're playing places like Bullies and the Railway. And, we played this one gig on Halloween, which was super fun, but the stage was like a 4-foot box, and we showed up and we're like, where's the PA? And they said, we thought you were bringing a PA. And but they had
ain't gonna work with a DI system.
It wouldn't have, but we made it work because there was just a speaker sitting around somewhere. But like that venue would not have worked with a 4x12. Like it would have been volume at 1 and output at 1, and it would still been blowing people away. So it's nice to be flexible because the PAs they differ in loudness depending on where you go.
Well, yeah, and it's always good to know the venue you're going to, right? I mean, I've been at this for a few years, and so I know to find out what they have for a backline, right? I mean, Roxy's fantastic.
Oh my
right?
gosh,
So
yes. Oh my
with the
gosh,
DI
yes.
system now, it'll be beautiful just to plug in, but I'm still going to probably bring my 20-watt tube head just so that I can have some stage presence, because I do like to have the stage presence. But at the same time, I'm not having to haul in, a 100-watt head. That thing weighs 100 pounds.
Yeah, no. And it's like, you're never going to use all 100 watts of it either, right? I know that Kim from Stickman uses one of those Head Rush FR speakers on stage. And yeah, when he had that at Bullies, I was like, man, that sounds great. And it gets everything that, you're looking for in terms of like, you get that stage presence, you get the instant feedback from the sound. But I mean, the other thing that we do when we play is we use a full in-ear monitoring system. So we've got click tracks, we've got all that stuff. And so like having more noise on stage for us doesn't really make any sense, because we're not going to be able to hear it anyway, because we got this thing going the entire show.
But sometimes the stage presence isn't for the musicians, because 9 times out of 10, even when I'm pulling a full rig, I don't hear myself. If you're not standing in the right spot, you're not hearing yourself.
Yeah, it does depend a lot on the room and how much reinforcement you got. Like somewhere like Redgate, I mean, they got massive speakers in there, and so like I never have to worry about being heard there. But like, you play a smaller place that's maybe got a little Yamaha speaker like this, and it's like that's all they got. And it's maybe I should have rented something. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know your room. So, like, even playing at the Princeton, they have a small PA system, so you do need to have stage sound, period, right? So, I mean, that's going to be perfect. I'm just going to take a 212, and when we played there last time, I just took a 212 and my 20-watt tube, and we're playing there again in May, so I think I'm probably just going to do the exact same thing, because you need to have some stage volume. Because
Yeah.
that PA system is not designed to be modeling any DI stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's good to be flexible as well. I mean, I know guys who are like hard on one end or the other. It's like, tube amp purist or modeler purist. And it's just like, at the end of the day, you got to do what works. You got to do what works for you and what sounds good. And if it sounds good and it works, then what's the problem?
yeah, I mean, I think there has to be a fine line between that sounding good and being functional too,
Yes.
right? Because I mean,
Yes.
I love playing through my 412. I love it. I love having that juice behind me. My back doesn't like it so much. And with my Nano Cortex now, you can't even tell the difference between playing through my regular stage rig or a DI rig. You cannot tell the difference.
Yeah.
But I think that's also going to be, it's also a lot easier for setup as well, right? You're not having to worry about any of that stuff. You just like pop it in and say, let's go, giddy up. We have an in-ear monitor rig as well, so it's just boom, 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 away you go.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm also a sound guy in my actual professional life. So I try to make things as easy as possible for sound people when we go places, and having that direct ins with our own in-ears and stuff, like, show up, here's the plot, plug us in, let's go. Right. And it's nice to have.
What was your favorite gig?
Geez. Okay. Our last one that we played at Bullies, which was our album release show, is probably near the top of that list, if not at the top of that list. Because that was just, it had nothing to do with the venue. It had nothing to do with the sound or with anything like that. It was just although the sound did sound phenomenal when we were there, actually. Just big shout outs to the Bullies sound tech from that night. But the thing about it that made it really special was just the people who were there.
Oh, absolutely.
And like,
that stage vibe, is.
It's so good. And like, everyone who was there was super supportive and super into the music. And like, they all came and stayed for the openers and for the mid people. And it was just like, it really felt like, okay, we've got a community here now. And you don't get that at every show, right? Like, that's not a shot against the Vancouver scene. The Vancouver scene is amazing. There's lots of really passionate people who will go to shows and make that community feeling there. But it's you know, it doesn't happen every time. Like, sometimes you play a show and it's just like everyone's off in the back room, not paying any attention. We've had shows where the other bands will leave for our set, and that just, you know, it hurts, obviously, but that just means that when you get a show like that Bullies one, where everyone's here for the same reason, everyone's here to support each other and to lift each other up, it's just beautiful, man. Like, you got to cherish that. You got to hold on to that, because that's what really makes doing this worth it. So that's what
You came up on a good point there. I mean, and that's something that I've been trying to talk to other musicians about as well. As when you're playing a gig together, as well as you, we've played gigs where as soon as they were done, they packed their shit up and they were gone.
Yeah.
Hey, that's fine. If you got other things to do, no problem. But we're supporting you, so why aren't you supporting us, kind of thing. It should be, you know, one hand helps the other kind of thing. I almost always stay to the very end. There's very few times where I'm not one of the last people out there. And if I do, it's because my back is aching or I got to take a shit. Right? I don't like taking a shit in a bar, right? I'd rather just drive my truck home for an hour and go and take a dump in my own bathroom, right? But 9 times out of 10, I'm usually one of the last ones there. It shows support, and plus, you know, even if I don't necessarily like all of their music, there's going to be stuff in there that I like, you know. And I mean, when we try to play shows, we try to make sure we're playing shows with people with similar genres, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same, because usually people like more than one different type of genre. I mean, if you're a metalhead, chances are there's other types of music you like. If you like country, you're probably going to like blues. You might like some rock. You might like some hip hop, you know. So this is an opportunity for your fans to meet their music, you know, and it's, you know, it's a great way of networking as well. And, I mean, that's part of the reason why I started this podcast, was starting to do all these gigs and meeting all different kinds of guys from all different walks of life and different types of bands, different types of music, you know, drummers, guitar players, bass players, producers, photographers, you know, and all basically around the music industry. I thought this would be a great way for people to network, hear other people's stories, you know, an opportunity to hear your music. So, I mean, at the end there, down here somewhere where my finger is, there'll be some links and all that kind of stuff where you can go and check them out. You know, things like that, because we want to share the music. And music is one of those things where I guess the thing that I love the best about music is it has no age limit. It has no religion to it. Well, unless you're like a death metal black band or something like that, you know, or, you know, black metal or whatever.
I mean, even then, I tell this story a lot, and like, not to get into a religious thing. I don't want to derail us into that, but like, you know, I was raised Christian. I work at a church. I identify as a Christian, but I saw Behemoth live, and oh my gosh, that was a phenomenal show. Like, yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. And it's just because I've met people who I would never have guessed that they were a metalhead. And I've looked at metalheads and I'm like, are you listening to country right now? Yeah. That's awesome, right? I mean, it's nice to be able to have more than one different type of genre in your playlist, kind of thing, right? And that's the cool thing about music is, I mean, I've gone to shows where I went to go see a friend's band, and I went there specifically to see them. And I listened to some of the other bands. I was like, hey, you know, I would never have known about this band had I not been here, you know, exposed me to their music. And I was like, hey, this is actually really good, so I go and check them out on Spotify or YouTube or wherever they're streaming their music and all those kinds of stuff. It's a great way to hear other types of music, and it's getting harder and harder for original bands to get out there and play shows, because so many of these pubs are playing, tribute and cover bands, which is fine. Anybody out there playing music has my respect, because it takes balls to get up on stage and perform.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, that is not an easy thing at times. There's been times when I've gone to do shows and my back is killing me, or I've got a headache, or I feel like shit, or I just had a rough week. And for that 45 minutes you go up there, you put all that shit aside and you give everything you got.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think that's the prevailing attitude for a lot of the performers in this city. It's like, they get up there, they're bringing their A game. They're going full on. And like, yeah, you're right. It's with all the venues in the city shutting down, like it's harder for people to get out there. But like another thing about, I think, Vancouver specifically, that I've really felt is the lack of coverage and discussion of local music in the scene. Because you had people who were going, like Elder God was doing the show reviews, but I think they're taking a break now. Haven't heard anything from them for a while. And Permanent Rain Press used to do album reviews, but they're not doing them anymore. I tell you, when we put our last album out, I submitted this thing to 30 different outlets. College radios, review outlets, people on the island. I spent like a whole day sending emails, crafting each one and like getting them out there. I heard nothing back from a single one of them. And this is, it's not the first time that I've tried to do that. And I know that a lot of other bands are feeling that frustration too. It's like, how do we get eyes on our music? Because social media is not working. Like, I know a lot of people get into the thing about like, oh, you got to maximize your social media presence. You got to blah, blah, blah. No, social media doesn't work for music. It's a garbage fire. Like, you get popular on social media by not doing music stuff. And so it's like, for musicians, there's nothing for us there, right? It's a content farm. It's for getting clicks and engagement and all this crap. So like, you succeed on those platforms by being controversial or by being super funny or whatever. So like, social media is not the place where we invite people to come to shows. So how do we communicate that? And it's like, well, there's almost nothing, right? Like you go and you play at a bar, the bar is not going to promote your show. We went and we tried to put show posters up for our show at Bullies. And I think we got 5 of them up, and then we ran into Rob up at Bullies, and he goes, oh, no. You got to go. You have to take those down, because the city will fine me for every poster that's up. So it's like, we put up, I think, maybe 4 posters that day, and it was in a couple of restaurants and this amazing record shop that's down by the New West SkyTrain station, who they let us put our poster up there, and then we were talking about music with them. They were just phenomenal. The name of it escapes me. But yeah, it's really difficult to get noticed anywhere in this city. And
well, that's the marketing aspect of it, and I don't expect all of my friends to be at all of my shows all of the time.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
But here's the thing is, though, I mean, support comes in many different ways. A lot of my friends who don't even like my music, if I post that we have a show coming up, they'll share it. Fantastic. It didn't cost them anything, but that's a form of support, because their friends are going to see this, and somebody might say, hey, I'm into that kind of music. I wouldn't mind going and seeing that show. It's just down the road from me or whatever. So, I mean, I think people think that support is always about coming to your show and paying the money. Sure, that's helpful. But I mean, it's a drop in the bucket considering the time and efforts that we put into it. I mean, it's not that much. It's a form of support, absolutely. But I got, even my mom, 80 years old, shares my posts that we're going to be playing at a gig somewhere. I don't think we're really huge in the 80-year-old community.
You never know. You might have a couple of diehard fans there. So, yeah.
The fact that she's out there doing it, it's awesome. I got friends out there promoting it as well. I mean, that's a great way of support as well, because ultimately it's law of averages. You put out 1,000 out there, you're probably going to get about 2%. Well, 2% is not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
I'll take 2%.
Yeah.
Right, you know.
Yeah. And it's yeah. I don't want you to take this as me like knocking the way of people sharing, because yeah, when people share your stuff, it's like a gift from the stars when someone will do that for you. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that's always happening. You know, people are having conversations about you and that you never hear of. So, you know, it's a process. It's a slow build, but man, is it a slow build sometimes, you know, like generating an audience, especially a local audience. It can just be like trying to pull teeth sometimes, you know.
But I mean, it's a labor of love.
Yes.
Most musicians that I know, especially in the lower mainland of British Columbia, most of them are not professional. You know, it's not like their only source of income. They all have jobs. I mean, everybody in my band has a job. We all have our other things that we do.
Yeah.
We don't expect to get rich off of it. You know, at the same token, you know, it's nice to be kind of compensated for some of your time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, we do it for the love of the music. I mean, there's nothing I love better than going on stage with my boys for 45 minutes. I get to be somebody completely different and go out there and be an asshole for 45 minutes. Maybe I am a bit of an asshole on the real time. You never know. But, you know, and I look forward to that. Like gig day, I always say, okay, I'm going to sleep in. I'll load the truck. I'll have a nap. None of that fucking happens. I load my truck up and I'm like, okay, is it time to go yet? Is it time to go yet? It's time. I'm ready to go. I just want to give her hell, right? It's a lot of fun. Where can we see you guys? We got a couple minutes left. Tell us a last little bit of a shameless promotion here. Where can we hear from you? What do you got coming up?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll give you our link trees, because will have the links to everything that we're doing. But we're on all the major streaming services. Yeah, around there. We're on all major streaming services. We're on Bandcamp. We've got a YouTube channel where we occasionally post little shit posty things just for fun. We've got a cover song that's coming out this month, and actually on January 25th, we're going to be playing at Tyrant Studios, and that's downtown. It's right next to, where is it next to? It's the last one. Anyway, Tyrant Studios is where we're going to be playing on the 25th. And then we're going to be working on a new album this year, and hopefully we'll get it out by the end of the year. Fingers crossed. But yeah, you can follow us, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Like I said, I don't post much on social media, but we will tell you about interesting things happening. So that's where you can find us.
Fantastic. This has been Randy Larocque with Sinister One Podcast with my guest today, Mr. Scott McGowan from the Evan Williams Band, Delta, British Columbia. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming by. And I thanks, Scott, for spending your Saturday afternoon. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Randy.
All right. Cheers.